That's what I thought. Okay. Here they go.
Everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meatless Monday.
Hi, everybody else. Tom and Eileen.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi. So we'll ask you to mute yourselves at the beginning, and I'll do a little introduction, and then we'll be.
Sharon, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. If you take a second and mute yourselves.
Hey, Sharon.
Yeah.
The different calendars have different times for this. One of them says 7 to 9, another says 6 to 8, another says 6 to 7. So just a warning.
Well, it's a crapshoot then, huh?
We'll be ready at
Two
whatever
classes.
time people emerge.
We'll watch that waiting room at 7 o'clock. So sorry. Well,
Was that Scott?
Yeah.
Scott, yeah.
I'll have 3 cocktails if I have to. I will do that.
Thanks,
In the
guys.
name of religion, the liberal thing, I will do that.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Sharon Rockwood, and I am the co-leader along with Dennis Rockwood of the Climate Action Team at Boise Unitarian Church and Fellowship, rather. And we're delighted that you could join us this evening. Thanks so much for taking time. And looks like some of you have your aprons on and you're ready to cook a Posole. So that sounds great. Just a quick housekeeping. If you have questions that come up during the demonstration, please just type them in the chat. We've got folks watching the chat. So if we need to interrupt the cooks and ask a question, that's okay too. And then at the end, we'll probably have time for questions again. As Scott just let us know, there's a couple of places where the time is incorrectly listed. So you're all here at the right time, 6 o'clock, Monday night. Awesome. So chat is where you want to put questions or comments. And if you want to raise your hand, if that's easier or whatever you'd like to do, that works too. We'll try to keep it kind of open and fluid. I'd like to welcome you to one of the Earth Month presentations. And tonight is Meatless Monday. And we're featuring Chef Michael Alvarado. And we are and his able assistant, Reverend Sara. Thank you so much for your time. And since no introduction that I could do would do justice to our 2 hosts here tonight, I'd like to turn it over to them, and maybe you could take a moment and introduce yourselves, and anybody who doesn't already know you. Why is it that you are interested in Meatless Mondays, and how did you learn how to cook? Take it away.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Climate Action Team, for putting this together again for our 2nd year. We had really so much fun doing the last one. Basically, we're doing this because I voluntold my husband that he should do it because he's an excellent chef and an excellent cook. But we have been foodies for a really long time. In fact, a little secret is that on the information packet in search, there's a little box where you get to fill out, like, is there anything that you would like your search committee to just know about you that isn't already in the 14 pages of information you shared? And I was really stuck about what to write in that box. And so I ended up writing that, you know, since we were from Southern California, we were really into craft beer and that we'd been longtime foodies. And so thanks to Patty Nakaoki, who is there in the waiting room right now, as I'm making a shout out to her. But I learned in the search process that Patty Nakaoki's a foodie too. And so thanks to Patty, she put us up at the Modern Hotel and Bar when we came for our very first interview. And we became loyal followers ever since until they had to shut down during the pandemic. That's just a little side note. So we absolutely love food. I'm not a cook. I've never been a cook. I'm a barely competent assistant. But I love food so much that I'm happy to be part of this process. And so the dish that I'm helping make today meets all of my skills because it's really just about chopping things without cutting yourself and assembling them in a bowl, and it's really tasty. But Meatless Mondays became of interest to us when we learned about the international campaign. Meatless Monday is actually an international campaign to draw awareness to the impact of big agribusiness and the meat industry on climate change as one of the largest producers of carbon on the planet. And that if folks on the planet just gave up meat, those of us who are not already vegan, if we just gave up meat and meat-related products 1 day a week, it would make a significant impact on carbon emissions on our planet. And so Michael and I are meat lovers, and we thought, okay, well, we weren't certain we could ever be vegan. We weren't certain we could commit to that, but we thought we could do it once a week. And so we started the practice in our own family for a while of Meatless Monday. So when the opportunity came for Earth Month to do a cooking class, we thought this would be a fun way to kind of engage with this, but also recognizing the significant impact that all of us collectively here tonight observing Meatless Mondays, we're doing our part in lowering our carbon footprint. But I'll let Michael introduce himself more fully and give you his cooking resume.
Hello, I am Michael Alvarado, and I am a self-taught chef, primarily through television. And probably the key influence would be the Swedish Chef on the Muppets. I think Sara can attest, I leave a trail of disaster behind me when I cook. So, again, learn and steal from the best. I've been cooking professionally, not here in Boise, but before we moved to Boise, I've been cooking professionally since 2003, working in kitchens, working as a caterer, managing restaurants, teaching cooking classes at Williams-Sonoma, and then transitioning into food development and developing food for Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Target, Safeway, Albertsons. So just kind of doing private label stuff for them on an industrial level. So I used to cook food by the truckload. And then moving here to Boise, it's been more about a labor of love. So this recipe for the Posole actually started because we had our garden for the first time back in LA, and we had some really suspect vegetables, and I wasn't sure what to do with them. So hence this recipe. So I think, should we get started with the cocktail?
Yeah.
Or?
So we chose the recipes today, both because we wanted something our cooking last time was a little ambitious. And so we talked about it. We said, since it's coming up on spring and many of us like to plant gardens, what is a recipe that we could do that could utilize some, if not many, of the vegetables we're likely to grow in our gardens? And so both the ceviche we're going to make tonight and the Posole we're going to make tonight are vegetable heavy, and will likely be able to use a lot of what you've got growing in your garden. And also an opportunity for us to share an abundance of our crops. So, Sandy Cruz, I don't know if you're out there, but she grows the best garlic, and if you have a bumper crop this year, we'll take some.
Mm-hmm. So I once heard a secret to a great dinner party, and the secret is not the food. It's starting with at least one cocktail, if not two. So today we're going to start with the cocktail that you can actually make and adjust really according to kind of how you want to do it. It makes a great mocktail if you exclude the tequila and the Grand Marnier or the Cointreau. But we'll start with not really needing a Biden-Harris glass, but it certainly helps. So we'll start. Larry, do you want one or do you want a different one? We can split it. You need some like these things. There we have the crushed ice. On top of that crushed ice, we're gonna go ahead and do half a can of our hibiscus ginger. If you hear screams in the background, that is our children lovingly, enjoying their free time on the computer. So we'll go through and do half a can.
Now, Michael, I have a question.
Yep.
First, I mistakenly bought the straight ginger beer, not the hibiscus one. So how does the hibiscus one, what flavor does that impart? What sourness?
It's the hibiscus, it's Jamaica. And so growing up, Jamaica was kind of like our Kool-Aid growing up. So it has this familiarity to me. Sometimes it can taste like dirt, I'm not gonna lie. So it just has some earthiness to it. I love the color that it provides. To that, we're gonna do a half a lime.
So we grew up in Tucson, Arizona, very near the Mexican border, and Mike grew up in a mixed house with lots of Mexican American aunts and uncles and grandparents, and so we grew up drinking Jamaica all the time, it's sort of when you're the red tea. It's technically a tea, but everybody likes to call it juice. And so these are actual Jamaica leaves. We've made our own Jamaica here. So you can make them like a tea. It's super bitter, so you have to sweeten it. So we thought that Jamaica ginger would make a nice sort of version of a margarita.
And we also thought it would be one less thing for you to go out and try to buy or pronounce, in going through. But Winco actually has Jamaica in the bulk section. So if you wanted to go through and do this, you could add a little bit more. The Grand Marnier floater is a nod to a margarita that we used to get at, I can forget the name of it, a Mexican restaurant that we would have down there. They had a great Jamaica margarita with the Cointreau floater. It was top shelf and it was just delicious. No, in LA. So we'll go through and finish with a little twist and
You can do
there
so.
and cheers.
If you're making your cocktails along with Michael, why don't you hold them up to your camera and let's take a look. Whatever beverage.
Here's mine. Okay, so I'm going to admit that I too only bought the regular plain ginger beer, but I found a hibiscus kombucha drink. So I kind of created my own mixer, part ginger beer, part hibiscus kombucha.
That's what happens.
Oh, you dropped your drink. Oh, well, all right.
It happens.
What's the appropriate cheers in Mexico? What would you say? Cheers or not skull?
I'm not sure.
They're cleaning.
Top of my lungs, and Sara says you don't have to hear the ice being scraped off the counter. If you haven't already, if you don't have your water going on the stovetop to soak the chilies, that's actually what we're going to move to next. So I will move over here. Oh, look at that. So lovely. You can see my trash bowl. Just ignore the trash bowl there.
So you want folks to put their tea kettles on for hot water?
Yeah, if they're not already.
Okay.
I have mine going It'll just need a second to heat up. So,
Oh my God.
I know I got it everywhere. I'm sorry. All right, we're gonna use the mulatto chili and then also the guajillo chilies. And as you can see, you get the big bags. We're only gonna use a couple of each, but what I wanted to share with you is that the guajillos are actually a great ingredient to go through and use in like a romesco sauce. So if you're gonna go through and kind of go through and make either romesco sauce or a fava bean dip, this chili paste, if you end up not using all of it for your pozole, it's a great addition for either kind of as a red sauce to add on top of the burrito or going through and adding it to appetizers. So the mulatto chilies and the guajillo chilies. Did anybody have trouble finding these?
Yeah, I bought pasilla
Great.
entero instead.
Yeah, that's fine. The pasilla is also gives it that raisiny flavor, which I find the mulatto's just a little bit less spicy. So, but we have our chilies. We're kind of just push them down, and then we'll pour that hot water over it. Steam up the
You
camera.
need me to make another cocktail.
Yes, I need a drink, please.
Okay, so Michael, there's
Yeah.
a couple questions in the chat already. What if somebody only has fresh chili peppers and not dried?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, it'll just have a different flavor, and that's okay. This is going to give it, the red chili is going to go through and give it kind of a depth of flavor and have those raisiny, earthy notes. It's also, my tia Jeannie would go through, because the kids didn't like red pozole, she'd always have the chile on the side. So you would go through and have your pozole and then actually take this red chili sauce and go through and add it later. So kind of what I wanted to say from the beginning was that like this recipe is great and adjustable. And if you're not using dried peppers, that's totally fine.
Could you
It's just
make,
gonna have kind of a fresher, it's gonna have a fresher flavor.
if you had some like chili powder, could you make a little chili paste and add
You
it in?
Yeah, you could totally use chili powder. I have no idea what the ratio would be from like a whole one, but you could totally try and then adjust from there. So I know that I said to go through and plastic wrap it. What I ended up doing, because I had so much air in the chilies before, was I put a bowl on top of it, and then that seemed to do the trick. So as long as you're only halfway on the liquid, then you can put that bowl down and we'll be fine. I'm gonna set this aside and we'll let that soak.
So while we let the chilies soak and get ready, we're gonna get ready to make the ceviche, vegan ceviche with the hearts of palm. So if you have that out and ready, all of your ingredients, you'll want to get your can or two of hearts of palm out, and your salsa fixings, whether you bought store-bought salsa or you bought fresh veg for chopping up and putting in a bowl. So go ahead and get all of those out. You can start chopping the things that you want to start chopping in no particular order, if that's helpful for you. I'm going to finish making our cocktail first, though, so we can
Oh, I
have
got it.
a
You go
proper
switch
evening.
on.
Oh, you can, okay, put lime juice in it.
Okay.
And
have
I just,
more chili questions, you guys.
Okay, great.
So we should be taking off the stem part, right? And just sort of the fleshy part of the dried pod goes in the water.
You just soak them. So at this point, we just want to get them hydrated, and then the seeds kind of just pop off later. If you wanted to remove the seeds now, you could. That would be fine. I tend to just kind of get most of them out after they're done.
And how many peppers are we soaking?
Let me go. I only had the ingredient list up for the Micah. So we have 3 chilies of each, 3 mulattos, and then also the 3 of the guajillos. And if you didn't get, if you got the pasilla, that's fine too, or the ancho, that'll be just fine. If you got the California ones, those are a little bit more mild than the New Mexico ones. So you could also have had the New Mexico red chili or I think they're the puyas. The puyas are a little bit more spicy than the guajillo peppers. But any of those, just 3 of each. And if you like your food really spicy and have like a lot of chili to it, we'll use all of them, but we can also go through and use half. All right, is there
Okay.
two behind this already?
If folks want their Posole to be more on the mild side, should they hold off? Use one fewer chili pepper?
Well, I always just make that amount of paste and then we'll add it in a little bit as we go. So
Nice.
they'll just have more to reserve. They can add in a little bit and then oh, that's nice. And then adjust as needed. So for those who don't like it as spicy, they'll start with a little bit less. Maybe go by the spoonful instead of kind of by the dollop.
Okay, perfect. So I hope everybody is caught up with the chili step.
And
if you're the ones out there using fresh chilies, you don't need to soak those. Those will just go into your broth with all the rest of your vegetables. And then we can talk about how to get a chili flavor. Like if you have some chili powder on hand, you know, how we can make just like a little paste to add into the broth later. That might give it that little chili flavor. But otherwise, you're still gonna have a really delicious kind of more vegetable broth style soup than the chili forward flavor, but it's gonna be great.
yeah, and kudos to you if you also spilled your drink in sympathy for us. So
You just tossed it like
yeah,
a
if
Swedish
you just
chef.
threw it down, that's great. I've already proved my point about the Swedish chef. A couple of goals for this evening is to have fun. We already missed the goal of not spilling our drink. Not setting off any smoke alarms. Watson family, we're gonna go for that. So we switched to canola oil, which has a higher smoking point. And this ceviche recipe is from the brewery that was right across the train tracks from my test kitchen.
Yeah, so this is not our recipe. We had this ceviche at a pub called Golden Road Brewery that was attached to the brewery. And it was one of their staples. And it's super delicious. And I was surprised at how much it actually tasted like regular ceviche. So you're gonna, and how these hearts of palm, these canned hearts of palm, there's something about them that in their preservation, it kind of smells like ceviche. Probably a little better, probably not as stinky. So you want to take
like
your,
scallops. If you
looks
cut
like
them right,
scallops.
they'll look like scallops.
You want to
So-
take your hearts of palm out. I might use 2 or 3. Doesn't really matter. No, I got it. How many you choose to use, I'm just gonna make for the 2 of us because we're the only 2 who will eat it here in our family. So we don't really need very much.
And I put all the ingredients for the ceviche in the chat in case anyone wants to look there.
And so I kind of like to,
Sure.
over here. I kind of like to cut them in rings because then they look like scallops or they look like calamari, but you can cut them however you like. And in fact, I'll probably cut some in bigger rings and then some in smaller bite-sized pieces just so that there's variety.
Because traditionally the ceviche had fish in it, yes?
Correct.
Yeah, any kind
Oh.
of fish, really. Shrimp, raw. Ceviche is typically raw fish with whatever other ingredients might come handy. Chili, jalapenos, onion, like your pico de gallo kind of fixings.
So you're gonna chop up your tomatoes.
Well, sure. So you can have fun. There's no rules to this. You can use as much or as little as you like.
How do you want to work?
So I like them tiny. I like everything tiny in ceviche because I like to eat it on chips, not with a fork. I like to use the chips as a scoop. So except for the hearts of palm being different sizes, I like to make everything else really tiny so it mixes in and all the flavors kind of blend together. And so you don't get like a giant piece of jalapeno or a giant piece of onion in any one bite. So I took 1 hearts of palm and quartered it and cut it, and then I sliced another one. Because when you mix it up with your fork, your hearts of palm rings, you know, they're gonna come out. You're gonna get this little inner piece, which is kind of cool. And it's kind of like hard-boiled eggs in a way. And so that's gonna get mixed up in there. I think I'm gonna use 3 because that looks good.
This would be a great recipe to go through and use your garden tomatoes in. Any type, really. I think the more colorful, the better.
Yeah, so for this recipe, we're gonna chop, if you have multiple hands in your kitchen, we're gonna chop the hearts of palm. We're using fresh tomato. If you bought pico de gallo or if you bought salsa, then you can just take that. What I would advise though is to take a slotted spoon or a fork and add it in a little bit at a time until it gets to the consistency you want instead of pouring it in. And that might be a little bit too much liquid. But the nice thing about this dish is it's kind of the, what do you have? What do you like? Put it in a bowl, season it with some lime and garlic, salt, and whatever other seasoning you like for something like this that's a salsa-esque kind of thing, and it's good to go.
How much tomato do you want this one?
Yeah, that looks great.
You can't get it wrong. That's my kind of recipe.
You can't, I mean, that's why I'm doing this dish, because you cannot make it wrong. There is no way to screw it up, I promise. You couldn't even if you tried, because you could probably fix it. So I like fresh garlic a lot, and so I already chopped up about a clove of garlic. Chop it up to your liking, but if you don't have fresh garlic on hand, you can use garlic powder, garlic salt, garlic flakes, whatever you have, or whatever other seasonings you have if you're not a lover of garlic, onion powder, anything of that nature. This is a fun dish. You can experiment with all the spices in your cabinet that you haven't used in a really long time. Probably not the East Indian spices, although who knows, that could be great.
So have you ever made it with artichoke hearts instead of hearts?
Yeah, I was wondering about the same question. I had that same question. Good.
No, but I thought that would be interesting.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be really fun to try. I'm trying to think about how the flavor would be different. But certainly the inner part of the artichoke heart has a lot of the same consistency of the hearts of palm. So if you have your tomatoes, whatever tomatoes you got, I know you told them to get cherry tomatoes.
I think so.
What we put on the list, we really put things on the list because these are the things that I like. But again, whatever you have on hand or whatever you're growing in your garden. So any kind of tomato, I really love. I like to grow yellow tomatoes too. So when those are in season, I'll often put those in. So I like to cut my tomatoes up, again, everything in small, bite-sized pieces that will mix well together. But you can cut them up however you love them. And then you just want to start mixing things in your bowl until it looks like there's a nice balance of things. I like tomatoes, so I'm going to add a lot of tomatoes. So we have tomatoes, we have garlic. I personally really like cucumber in just about anything because it really just gives a nice crunch. And so this is an English hothouse cucumber. Persian cucumber would work well. We chose these cucumbers because they have a little more defined flavor and they're a little crunchier. They don't bleed as much water into your dish. So they're a little easier to chop. There's not as much fleshy and seedy interior, so they retain a little bit of the texture that goes really well with something like ceviche, where you kind of want everything to have a little bit of crunch.
If you just joined us, we already have our guajillo peppers and our mulatto peppers soaking in hot water. You can de-seed them and then soak them, or you can just throw them in there and soak them. Either way, but we do want them soft for when we start the pozole.
So I diced my cucumbers up really tiny, and I'm just gonna add those in. And Normally, I don't really like using my hands to mix things because that's just not my thing, but it seems to be working right now. Look how it's looking really beautiful. It's looking really colorful. Next, we want to add, I like to add red onion into this. And a trick for red onion that Michael taught me is to, get going whatever you want, to slice it up and soak it in a little bit of water, in a little bit of cold water. And that keeps your red onion from bleeding all over your other vegetables and making everything that like weird purple tint. So if you do this first and you get it soaking, if you can't do that, you didn't do that ahead of time, it's not going to ruin anything. You can just, if it were me, I would not ever have done this. I would have just put the red onion right in the bowl. It just would never have occurred to me.
And
But
Sarah, how long do you suggest soaking the onion?
how long do you have to soak your onions to soak
The longer it soaks, the more mild it becomes. So, and you can also dry it out on some paper towel or just kind of,
or
use the-
Jamaica soaked cloth, that works too.
And one time I saw a cooking demonstration, and with red onions, they said, it's nice to just make it as little skinny pieces as you can,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
People don't want to bite into a
Yes,
piece
these
of
are
red onion.
wafer thin.
Perfect.
That's just another example of how important chopping is. You cannot underappreciate chopping skills.
And that requires sharp knives, yes? So
It does.
you can always,
And practice, and also when we talk about uniformity,
Wait, what?
it's going to have all of the same flavor. So if you do have things that are larger than the other, you're going to get more flavor out of the larger cuts. So, and with everything being the same with Sara's ceviche, you're going to get a nice kind of round flavor instead of like a shock of onion.
I would fail at MasterChef because Gordon Ramsay would yell at me every time I cut anything because there's zero uniformity. Like that's just not a skill that I have mastered. But when you're making something like this, it doesn't matter.
All
I'm
right.
going with radishes. Is that a good idea?
Say that again, Cornelia.
I'm gonna go with radishes. What do you think?
I love radishes. Yeah, we have some here. If you love radishes and they added lots of extra crunch, go for it. Put some radishes. It will make a good garnish. We'll be doing some very thinly sliced radishes as garnish for the posole, so we can grab. The nice thing about this posole too is that we're sharing a lot of ingredients. So if we had everything prepped in advance, our mise en place, we'd have all of our things all pre-chopped and ready to go. And we could just steal from the posole to flavor our things. So we're still going here with our dish. And now we're gonna add, if you have a fresh jalapeno or fresh chili of any kind and you really like that flavor, go ahead and add it in, or anything else. If you have radishes and you want to add in some radishes, go ahead and add that in.
so can we talk about slicing chilies a little bit? I know I actually put plastic gloves on and I get all the seeds out, because one time I didn't do that and I must have touched my eyes and got burning eyes and everything. So I just will wear those, but then you have to be careful when you're slicing. So
Yeah.
You don't want anything blue ending up in the ceviche. You don't like the tips of your glove ending up in them. It's both meatless and nitrile or latex free.
Latex free.
Yeah, I also, Eileen, have been down that road more times than I care to admit. So the fact that I'm doing it barehanded now means when you're done with slicing your jalapeno or your chili, go wash your hands.
and also I try to get the seeds out because I just don't like things all that spicy, and that makes a big difference. And you don't want to get them in your fingernails. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
like to take all the seeds out too. Also, it's prettier. if you take out all the insides of your chili pepper, you can scrape it out and slice it out, and so it's empty. It will be less spicy. And I think I might only just do a half my spice tolerance, even though Michael would argue that there's 0 spice in a plain jalapeno pepper.
0.
Some of us know that's not entirely true. And so I will cut it into like really thin strips and just to get them as tiny as I can. And then the last thing, let me just say the last thing we're gonna do here, we're gonna finely dice our cilantro. If you like cilantro as a garnish, and you can do more than what's here, because that will also, then you can do, your double prep and have your cilantro ready for the posole as well.
Oh, what a great idea. Yeah.
So I will finish
That's
chopping
so
the
awesome.
cilantro.
Thank you.
And then we're gonna start doing some things for the posole, but your ceviche is here. So if you're not done yet, don't worry, because when we get the soup actually rolling, we can come back and finish this, and we can season it together. But if you're already going and you love it, you can add some lime juice, salt and pepper, garlic salt, mix it around, season it like you would season your own homemade salsa or your own homemade guacamole, and you can already start eating it. But we'll come back to it in a little bit and talk a little bit more about that. We just want to get going on the posole.
All right.
So we have a question in the chat. Should they start chopping the red pepper and squashes for the pozole if they are ready to move on?
The red pepper, green onions, and the zucchini. Let's see here. I am so dyslexic with this camera. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I can move it around.
It's all right. So. I have a garbage bowl, which is a prerequisite to keep your partners in the household happy from, making your mess go everywhere. So we have that at the ready. If you see me chucking stuff to the side, it's not because I'm throwing it over my shoulder. It's going right into the compost bowl.
Sarah, can we talk about the cilantro? Do you ever just use kitchen shears for it, or do you really recommend those? Just knives?
I think it depends on I have never used kitchen shears. That's so brilliant. I'm gonna try that right now.
I think the kitchen shears should be, this is gonna make a lot of S's, super sharp, because you don't wanna bruise the cilantro. Like you pretty much just wanna cut it once as you're going through. Otherwise you're gonna end up with a lot of more of the, just like the bruised, kind of,
You only want me to cut
cilantro.
it once?
Okay.
How do you cut cilantro once?
You real tight and then.
Okay. If Michael were doing this, we'd take all these individual leaves and we'd pile them on top of each other and we'd roll them up like chiffonade stuff, and then we'd just slice them like that. But
With no bruising? Oh my goodness, yeah.
theoretically, but
That's
that's
That sounds like another Chef Alvarado tip. Don't bruise the cilantro.
We're gonna do the red pepper.
No, Bruce.
Here's a cheater way to go through and cut the red pepper. So you can kind of see all of the sides. We're just gonna cut down the very pointy top of the ridge, and that'll get most of the pith off of the wall. As you can see, so I'm just coming down on the apex of it, and it's actually leaving the rib of the pepper there. The last one's a little tricky.
Eileen, have you cut cilantro with your kitchen shears? Does that work well for you?
I have, and it looks like Patty Nakioki does too. Now, my issue with it is I always get some stems in it. Is that so?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the trouble this time of like picking the leaves off and putting them in a pile because I had the prep time to do that. But that's
But not typically.
no, in
Yeah.
a regular day, I just rip a handful off and start
Yeah.
chopping.
So the important thing here is to remember that you have one bowl for your ingredients and one bowl for your compost. So be sure once you spend all of your time working towards chopping up, that you don't put the chopped up bell peppers in the compost. Not that that would harm anything, but that you want everything to kind of be nice and tasty. So we're gonna get the red bell peppers going. Again, the uniformity on them, you just want kind of a nice even chop. I might end up using half of this red bell pepper. The last time we went through and made this recipe, it ended up a tiny bit sweet. And I wasn't sure if that was because of the amount of carrots or the bell pepper, or if it was the store-bought stock. So maybe we'll just do all of it,
But
just for
delicious.
giggles.
It was delicious though, so it didn't really matter.
If you have a compost, I actually keep a bucket in the garage and I put it on the floor when I'm doing big cooking things so that I can just like have the bucket on the floor and like put stuff in there.
That is super, super.
And then it goes straight out to the compost when I'm done.
That
Are
is
cocktails
great.
compostable? Because my cocktail would have ended up in the bucket. It would have been very sad.
So we were talking earlier about the compost. So this is my little container, or big container for compost. And Cornelia, you have something too that you were talking about.
Yeah, my container is the perfect rectangular size that fits inside the door of the freezer. So I never have to worry about the compost getting smelly. You just keep it in
Charcoal filtered compost. Which is like, it has like a little filter on the top, which keeps kind of the flies out.
We used the City of Boise free plastic one for a long time until it got so gross that it had to go away.
Well, I was going to ask about that. Mine's pretty gross right now, and I don't know how to clean it or replace it. So.
Use the Trader Joe's vegetable wash, right? I mean, it's vegetables. Maybe that's the best way to go through and clean it.
So that sounds like a question for Chad. Everybody, if you got a special way to clean your compost bucket, let us know.
Yeah.
That's a
So I went through and have the squash and I have the zucchini. I've got those in about a 1/2 inch strip all the way down. And so we're just gonna go through and dice this. And again, we just kind of want them to be uniform as possible so that we get great flavor all the way through. The nice thing is it's a soup. So, you know, people aren't really gonna be seeing this all on the plate. They're just gonna see the toppings on top of their bowl. So if you've got a couple of odd ones, no big deal. This isn't a French recipe. This is all about what's in your backyard and what you feel like eating for the evening. So we've got all of these 3 vegetables. Our oven is preheated to 375 to go through and roast these. We're not going to cook them all the way through. We're just going to try to get some color on them, and then we'll add them to the Posole at the very last minute.
So if folks haven't preheated their oven,
If you haven't preheated your oven,
now would be a good time.
now would be the time.
I would love to hear in the chat from folks, what are you all planting this season? What do you like to grow? Do you have special I mean, this is my big conundrum every year. I'm often just too tired to do enough much planting. But I've learned a lot from congregants over the years about gardening.
So there's a question, vegetables are we roasting? I think probably he meant which ones are we?
We're roasting the cut up squash and the red pepper, the yellow
And
squash, the zucchini, and the red pepper.
and 1 bunch of green onions.
A bunch of green onions.
So these will get roasted at 375.
The green onions too? You roasting green onions?
No, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy. I like the char that they give, and it also kind of gives it a little bit of an onion flavor. With the sautéed onions and carrots, those get cooked down, so those are kind of end up being sweeter than normal. This is also a really great salad recipe is to go through and roast the squash, roasting some corn, bell peppers, and green onions. Roast those all together and then put them in a bowl and top them with lemon juice and slices of avocado and a little bit of salt, pepper, maybe some olive oil. So it's a really great summer salad that we'll go through and make as well. It's just that's a little bit of a kind of a nod to that, I guess. It's probably, what else would we do? We do some asparagus. You can go through and roast all sorts of vegetables. So here's our bowl with our zucchini, our squash. Again, got most of them all the same size. We're gonna go through and coat it with the canola oil. So I'm gonna do about a tablespoon.
So Michael, let's talk a little about oil. It seems like all the recipes anymore want olive oil for everything. Why did you choose canola here? And you want to talk about when to use which?
2 words, Shireen Watson. I'm just kidding, that's a joke. That's totally a joke. Olive oil has extra virgin olive oil has a slower smoking point than canola does. You could use grapeseed. Really all I want to do with this is to not have any additional flavor. So the canola oil is really just for the temperature that we're roasting it at and not for flavor. You could totally use extra virgin olive oil if you wanted to, and that's all you had. This really is kind of one of the things that I don't like about recipes is that like this really should be kind of use what you have at home. So if you don't, if you don't have that, it's fine. I just use the canola for the roasting, and then we'll probably end up using it as well for the onions and carrots. So here, this all fits onto a sheet pan really nicely.
Beautiful color.
Too crowded. And again, eggplant would be great in here. If you want to add in just regular onions instead of the green onions, you could do that as well. This really is just kind of what's in your garden. You could add in kale even, like roasted kale with just kind of something to it. So hopefully this really just inspires you to go through and play with the different flavors. So we'll set it for 20 minutes and that should be good to go. I'm going to wash my greasy hand.
So Sarah, Jenna Reno has a whole very long list of what she's growing here. Grains, pearl millet, blue hoppy corn, amaranth, beans, yellow, Indian woman, purple bush, long beans, blue lake bush, unknown pole green beans, black chickpeas, fava, shelling peas, and sugar snap peas. The greens she's growing are going to be kale, arugula, green cabbage, fiesta broccoli. Ooh, I don't know what this fiesta broccoli is.
Spinach. Farm stand gonna open up for.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So while you're talking, I'm gonna get going on the onion and the carrots. And I don't like just buying the really big carrot because our family, we do baby carrots. So you could use one big carrot or you could use lots of baby carrots. About 3/4 of a cup of the carrots. And then we have 1 medium Spanish or yellow onion. I'm gonna go through and get that dicing, and then we'll go through and start sauteing these with the chile as well, with our bowl, with the bird chili. And I made the cardinal. I broke the rule. I'm eating while I'm cooking. I probably shouldn't be.
Now, Michael, are those going to be roasted as well, but you just got the others started, or?
These won't be roasted. These will be sauteed with the onion.
Okay.
We're sauteing the carrot. Yep, kind of like the Trinity. We just pulled the bell pepper out and threw it in the oven.
Okay, on to the garden. Sweet. Here's some other more unusual ones. Sweet banana peppers, golden beets,
Yes.
pumpkins, purple, green. How can you purple green beans?
Ooh.
Purple. So I guess in the shape of green beans, but they're purple, I guess.
Cool.
All right.
That sounds great. So some of you are singular cooks, so you keep going on the vegetables for the posole. Those of you that have multiple hands in the kitchen, you can come back to your ceviche. And when the posole is going, those single chefs out there can finish up your ceviche in whatever way that you would like. I'm gonna do a half a lime. And then in our family, is the seasoning here? Where'd it go? Oh,
What's that, the menudo seasoning?
In our family, we buy the menudo seasoning. I'll show the label here.
See what I mean? It's dyslexic,
yeah,
right?
It's,
Yeah.
it's funny.
Not just me.
And this is what it looks like. You don't have to have it, but it's a wonderful seasoning for all kinds of things, for soups, for salads, for any sort of Mexican fare.
Sarah, what's in it? What are the ingredients in menudo seasoning?
Question, Cornelia. I'm trying to read them here, but it's really tiny. Oregano,
Citric acid, garlic, salt.
cebolla, chili,
Yeah.
onion, chili pepper, and citric acid. It's probably the citric acid that makes it great for everything. So you could put those seasonings separately. The citric acid does just give it a little bit of acid. So if you've done your chef homework and watched any cooking shows or read that fabulous book by Samir, what's her name? I can't remember her last name.
So,
Heat acid.
Heat.
Yeah.
We learned that in cooking, every dish really needs some variation of almost all of those ingredients for flavor in some capacity. And if you are avid Top Chef watchers like I am, every judge's table, you always hear that needed more acid or that needed more salt. So I like to use the menudo seasoning because then it gives it that X factor, plus you get the citric acid in there. Salt is good, pepper is good, whatever you like.
Are we chopping the whole onion, Michael?
what's that?
One medium onion, chop the whole thing?
Yep, dice the whole thing. We're gonna go through and do this in probably a 1/4-inch dice.
Well, yours is a 1/4-inch dice. Mine is in weird random shapes, but small.
That's okay.
Weird random shapes.
We're gonna lovingly cook the heck out of this. So.
Oh, Michael, did you notice when you moved to Idaho that they seem to have the largest onions ever? I'm always concerned when they say to add an onion, it's like not an Idaho size onion.
Yeah,
What do you
not
think?
Idaho-sized onion, and I didn't realize. I mean, maybe I'm shopping at the wrong place, but we have not had garlic that tasted like garlic. I mean, is it because Gilroy is in California? I don't know, but Sandy's garlic, when she dropped that off, I was like, garlic. I was so excited. And yeah, I don't know why. The garlic just doesn't, taste as fresh. I don't know why that is, but the onions here, I definitely had to adjust my carnitas recipe and everything because they were so big. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is definitely, if we got a 5-pound bag or a 50-pound bag at the restaurant, it would be just like 3 onions, if they were from Idaho. So.
And Sharon, yes, garlic grows in Idaho.
Yes, okay.
Big time.
we should probably put some in our garden then,
Yeah, we should.
instead of just crying about it.
And Michael, can you talk a little about white onions versus yellow onions? When to choose what?
I have no idea why, but I use the yellow onions for cooking. I think it's the sugar content, whereas the white onions I only use for topping, like for salsas and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's really true, if there's a difference in the sugar content, but in my family, we always used the brown onions. For that, we used sweet onions for burgers, and then the white onion was for salsa, for topping, like in menudo. You would always hear someone complain if there was a yellow onion in with the cilantro and the cebollitas. They'd be so mad. They'd be like, "Why isn't this white onion? Like, what's so wrong with you?" So, but that's if anybody else has actual factual information instead of just anecdotes, that would be great.
Okay, and Roger Sherman saying, I think you meant garlic, get excellent garlic at the farmer's market.
Yes.
So,
So we're gonna get the onions and carrots and the 3 chili de arbol. We're gonna do just enough oil to coat the pan. I have a 5-quart pot. This is a 1-pot wonder, but obviously we've used several other dishes and a cooking pan. So, and probably a blender. So just enough oil to coat the pan. And at this point, we will season the onions and the carrots with a little salt and pepper. We have about 10 minutes on our grilled vegetables. Those are going nicely.
So that's the soup pot, a large soup pot that's going to hold the full amount of Posole, right?
Yes, you do not need to use a Star Wars spatula, but I highly recommend it because then you can make like Wookiee sounds while you're cooking and the kids will love it. So we're gonna go through it a bit. This base started. We'll add in, for those of you who don't want spicy, this is what's going to make it the spiciest. So if you like a lot of spice, you'll add more than 3. If you like a little bit of spice, maybe just 1. I recommend adding at least 1 because then you know how the other chili peppers, how spicy the other ones were. So these can go in. I leave the stems on so I have less of a chance of getting the seeds in with it cooking, and that'll kind of keep it less bitter. We'll pull the stem off before we go through and blend it. But we have it over a medium high heat, and we want to go through and cook this just until the onions get soft. So we don't want to caramelize them. We just want to cook them until they get soft.
Michael, I'm going to interrupt for a second because earlier we learned that the time for our Meatless Monday demonstration was written in different times at different locations, and I think we may have 1 or 2 new people.
Okay.
So we're delighted that you've joined us and terribly sorry that there was confusion at the time. Sara and Michael have begun the preparation of the ceviche and the cocktail and the Posole. I don't know if you could summarize a little bit if you have just a second on that.
If I have to make another cocktail and drink it, I mean, this is what I must do. We already started with the cocktail. We also have our chili soaking in hot water. So if you are cooking with us and you want to jump on in, get your chili soaking in the hot water. I put a bowl on top of it to kind of keep them submerged. We have our vegetables roasting in the oven, our zucchini, squash, green onions, and bell peppers. Those are roasting at 375. And if you look at the other camera, we have our onions, carrots, and some canola oil in our soup pot with 3 chili de arbol, which is kind of like a bird pepper. And most importantly, Sara Lawal's Golden Road Ceviche. I guess we should say ceviche.
Thank you very much. I'll put the recipes into the chat for anybody who's new. We have them in, have put them in before, but we'll do it again. And then you can see what we're working on. Thanks a lot.
And then we'll get, as the soup gets going and just needs to then simmer on the stovetop, for those who are just joining, if you're getting started with us and you have particular questions going back to the beginning of the recipes, feel free to write those in the chat or ask them, and we can back up and talk you through some things if you need it.
Yeah, we'll help you in the chat. Don't worry. You won't get lost.
So we're just simmering our onions and carrots right now, sauteing our onions and carrots right now. So for multi-chefs, if your ceviche is properly seasoned to your liking, lime juice as much as you like. If you want to add lemon juice, add lemon juice. And all of the other things, and just keep tasting it until it tastes right to you. And then I diced up an avocado, because I like a little avocado on top, but I'm gonna let us put it on top. That's good, you keep going. I'm gonna let us put the avocado on top separately so it doesn't get brown in there if we have any leftovers. And a side note for all of this, you know, there may be those of you out there like us and who weathered the pandemic by eating your way through it and making a lot of bread. And, you know, there's some conversation around the weight gain that's happened. And so I, along with a number of people, are trying to get myself back to a healthier state. And all of the recipes we're making tonight are super healthy and low calorie. So if counting calories is a thing for you, even the ceviche and the posole are really healthy and really excellent, and very low in calories. And I recently learned in this endeavor that beginning your meals with a broth-based soup fills you up, especially one with lots of veggies and good stuff, and can help you eat fewer calories in the rest of your meal because you've started with a low calorie but very filling, low density starter like a broth-based soup. So I learned that just as Michael tested the recipe and spent the rest of the week eating nothing but soup. However, it doesn't count if you buy the really good chips from Albertsons, like the homemade kind, or from your favorite Mexican restaurant, because that's how I most like to eat the ceviche, is with the chips, but it's great by itself with a fork like a salad. If you have your chips handy and and you're getting hungry and you need to tide your hunger, that is why we have made the hearts of palm ceviche.
One of the nice things, I know that we talked about this earlier, but the reason why I like the Q or the Fever Tree ginger beer is that they actually add chile to the ginger beer, so it has a bigger bite, and it has kind of that, I'm gonna say it, I think I would say it, that retronasal. It kind of, when you drink, it comes like through the backside of your taste buds, so you kind of have that kind of alcohol sensation. So if you don't drink, you are not missing out on anything really by omitting the tequila, and you can actually add a squeeze of fresh orange juice right on top to mimic that Cointreau, that really kind of orange liqueur flavor to it. So as a mocktail, it's fantastic. And one of the great things about the margarita that we would have, they had a Serrano simple syrup So you can actually go through and take like a really spicy pepper, char it, put it in sugar water, boil it, chill it, and then use that as well on some club soda. Really great, really good bite to it. I see chat. But
How's
I can't
everybody
read it.
doing with their cooking out there? Are there more questions?
There's discussion in the chat around the chilies and which are soaking, which go in the pot. I think we've got people caught up that the chile de arbol is the one we're sauteing. You can see them in the pot.
What we are using here is we're using guajillo chilies. These are the ones that are soaking. 2 or 3 of these and 2 or 3 of the mulatto chilies. Whatever you purchased or whatever you have on hand, if you have chilies on hand, all of it will be tasty. It'll just be different flavor profiles. And then, so these are the ones that are soaking in the hot water. And then the chili de arbol are the ones that Michael threw right in the pot. This is for your extra kick. This is for your spice.
So with the onions, as you can kind of see, they're getting translucent. They're not really browning on the edges, but we're just kind of getting them soft. We've got a little bit of browning happening on the side of the pan. So I'm just going to rotate the pan and move that hot spot to the cold side so we don't get anything caramelizing just yet. I'm also going to go ahead and turn this probably to low. I'm going to go ahead and put that to low, and then we'll blend our chili peppers and get ready to add in the rest of the ingredients in here.
Do you need the squeezer?
How's that look? Does that look okay, Cornelia? Really see.
What are you showing me?
We're going to be blending over here on this.
Oh, yes, we can see that perfectly once you start.
Perfect. No.
That's our timer.
We'll check the vegetables real quick and we're gonna need a tiny bit more time. We want to get them a little bit darker than that. So I'm gonna put these back in.
You stopped your camera.
I stopped. Oh, it's on low battery though.
Oh, I'll fix that.
Oh, is it join? I don't know what it is.
No, don't click join. It's just,
Okay, you see it?
Yeah, click join.
And so here we have our chili peppers. Was it Cornelia? Was it you that mentioned wearing gloves?
I think that was Eileen.
Eileen?
Eileen.
Yeah, if you have gloves, you can use them for this. You are going to get some of the chili oil on your hands. But we want to take a little bit of this water. We don't have a big blender, so I'm just going to use our magic bullet. We're going to start off with just enough water to get these puree. And then the bowl that I was using to soak from, that's actually going to be my trash bowl. So I'm going to pull the chili peppers. Can you see that? And I'm just going to go through and shake out as much of the seeds. These are the guajillos. Those down. Here are the mulatto peppers. And again, kind of it just has that one big bunch of seeds. And so you can totally go through and destem them first, but I feel like you get more flesh if you do it this way. Either way is totally fine. So just kind of opening these up, pulling out that part. one of my first jobs ever cooking was roasting chilies over an open flame. I think it was because my nana didn't want me in the kitchen at all. It was really annoying and driving her crazy. So she said that I could go outside and roast the chili peppers. And when I complained about all the smoke and it was too much, it was spicy, it was making my eyes spicy, she said that I could kill the worms instead. So we were making green corn tamales, and we would have to go through and husk all of the corn. And then that was my second job, was killing the worms that were in the corn. So I have since graduated, and I now get to go through and do all of the chili peppers.
And don't touch your face.
That's right. Don't touch your face at all. So don't throw away this liquid. We're going to reserve it to go through and add it into the puree if it needs a little bit more liquid. So hold on to it. If you just soaked your chili peppers immediately, be really careful if you're putting hot water into a blender. You will create steam and pressure, and that lid will blow off, and then you'll get this everywhere. So if you're using a blender, keep that little bit of the lid open, or put a towel over it. This water is just lukewarm. It's been sitting there for a minute. So I think we're okay. Go through.
So we're blending the chilies that we soaked with just a small amount of water, as little water as we need to keep the blender going.
I covered up. Yep, I think I have like a cup and a half of water in there. But then that's the consistency that we get. It's kind of like ketchup. And we won't do anything with this just yet because we want to add in our other chilies. So if you don't, again, if you don't want it super spicy, then don't add in the chili de árbol, but I'm gonna add in all of mine because I like it spicy.
And also avoiding seeds will help it be less spicy, right?
I think so. I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's the chili pepper that's the spicy part, but that's just me. All right. I'm gonna get this blended. When you wash out your blender at the end of the evening, make sure that you're using cold water. If you go through and use hot water to wash out your blender that you went through and pureed the chilies with, you're going to end up with pepper spray, and it's going to be quite unpleasant. So we're going to go through and take 1 clove of garlic. This.
I've got a question. Veggies, how dark do we want it to be? Should we be stirring and that kind of thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question?
The veggies we're roasting in the oven, they need our attention?
Ooh, yes. They should have color on them. And yeah, I think mine are done. If yours are a little bit darker, that's fine. We just kind of want to go through and get those most of the way cooked. I'm just going to put them over here to cool down. That's for you. For now. So I have 1 clove of garlic. We're just gonna go through and mince real quick. If you have the better than bouillon, if you have the vegetable base, we're gonna kind of get to that section. If you couldn't find the vegetable base, which I couldn't, I found like caramelized onion and ham hock and all of these different flavors. The mushroom base would probably be fantastic in this. It would kind of give it that like nice deep earthy note. But I was able to find just regular old vegetable stock. So that's what I'll be using. If you have your better than bouillon, then we're going to go ahead and add it in with the garlic. So we've got clove of minced garlic. If you have the better than bouillon, then you'll go ahead and do 2 tablespoons, I believe, because we're going to do 2 quarts of water on top of that. Adding in the tomato paste.
Tomato paste?
Yep. Tomato paste. I don't really measure. I'm going to say that's about a tablespoon and a half ish.
So Michael, I don't know if everybody uses that, but that tomato paste in a tube is very handy because a lot of times you just need a couple tablespoons, right? Instead of opening a whole can.
Yep, I'm gonna add in a little bit of the menudo seasoning, probably about a teaspoon there.
Okay, we don't have that. We
That's
use
fine. We're gonna go through use a little bit more of oregano and the cumin and the coriander. So we're just adding in seasoning there. Again, if you have the paste,
a spoon each, you say, of oregano and coriander.
mm-hmm. Just gonna go through and scroll. Where is it? Yep, half a teaspoon dried oregano, half a teaspoon ground cumin, and a half a teaspoon of the coriander. We're just going to kind of add that in.
Is coriander a traditional Mexican spice? I think more like Indian.
No, yeah, it is. We would go through and use it instead of cilantro. So like we would go through and add that in like the wintertime, we would go through and add it to soups and stuff.
The really nice thing about this soup, because it's got that chili base, which is going to be a really big, really deep flavor, you can spice it. You can use your herbs and spices based on what you really like that you think will go with the flavors. You can open up your spice cabinet and, you know, if you want to add a little, this is what I would do because it's fun. If you want to add some of those spices that are in the back there that you haven't used before or that you don't use very often, go for it. It's gonna be hard to overdo it in that regard just because the chilies are going to be such a powerful flavor.
So if you have your canned hominy, now you'll want to go through and open up those cans and drain it. I went through, we made this 2 weeks ago, and so I bought the huge can of hominy and I just froze half the can and managed to process it in time. So
this is the size of my head. Big. It's the only one I could find.
Big one?
Yeah. So Michael, what else could people use their hominy? What other dishes maybe to use it up?
Well, it's really good just roasted as a snack, like kind of like roasted chickpeas. It's kind of really, it's like the corn nuts, but don't roast them like all the way until they're done. this is also really good in chili. So adding the hominy to chili. I haven't tried using this to actually make like actual corn tortillas, like mixing it with the masteca. I don't know if you could actually do that or not. That'd be that would be interesting. So I'm gonna go through and add in the hominy.
The hominy has that like texture and weight that maybe meat might have in a dish like this, and so but
Right.
it is so flavorless.
Probably good in chili, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, we rated really any kind of soup that you wanted to just have a little
Kind
more.
of bulk up.
But I feel like even chopped up, you know, you could put it in a pasta dish. You could use hominy to
Oh.
make a bolognese, right? It's just to make a vegan bolognese. It has that really good texture, but it has no flavor, and so it's going to adopt the flavors that you bring to it.
The agave that we have in the recipe, my store-bought broth is kind of sweet tasting, so I'm gonna hold off on adding this in. If you don't have the store-bought broth, if you have the Better Than Bouillon, we're about to hydrate that, and then we can kind of taste it, the broth for sweetness and acidity. But I'm gonna go through and hold off on this for a bit. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my heat up to high.
Yeah. Michael,
Yep.
tell us what you have in the pot so far. Have you already added in some of your rehydrated peppers?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
That in, we're gonna put that in last. And the reason for that is that way everyone at home can kind of add a little bit at a time instead of just going through and throwing it in now. Then we may not know kind of how spicy that ends up.
So he just has onion, carrot,
Onions,
hominy.
all the aromatics, so the garlic is in there. We have the Better Than Bouillon, which would be 2 tablespoons of that. And then the spices, we have the cumin, the coriander, and oregano. If you have the menudo seasoning, you can add that in now. And that's all that's really in here at this point. So it's really interesting. Like right now, it kind of, I don't know, I don't think that looks very appetizing. So part of the using the dried chile, it's gonna make it just look so vibrant and beautiful that, like right now, this looks very sad. I think we would probably not be stoked to eat this. Although there is my favorite soup ever. It's not vegan, but it's vegetarian, and it's caldo de queso. And caldo de queso is basically just yellow onion, potato, and then we would have the hatch chile from New Mexico. They would go through and sell it during green corn tamale season. So roasted hatch chilies, and then it just has this beautiful broth. You could either use chicken broth or vegetable broth. And then you grate farm queso fresco on top. So it's like a farm cheese, right? Is that what queso fresco would kind of be? Yeah.
And what did you call that, Michael?
That was caldo de queso, like soup of cheese. But yeah, it's just potatoes and onions. I mean, it probably if we end up doing this again, A, I won't spill my cocktail on the very first time I make it, and B, we'll do fideos, which is probably one of my favorite things to eat. Maybe that should be like closer to wintertime, but that's like toasted vermicelli with garlic, and then you go through and add tomato sauce to it, and then either vegetable broth or chicken stock to it. So vegetable broth for a meatless Monday. But just that in and of itself, fideos are probably like the all-time thing that I crave when I have a cold is fideos. It's just a ton of garlic. It's toasted. It's made very much like you would like arroz con pollo, where you toast the grains of rice with the garlic.
So what is the thing that you're saying though? How do you spell it?
With fideos is
FID.
It's so bad because I put Posole
E-O-S.
as Posole because I was like, it's Posole. And then I went through and I was trying to like educate myself. Like, what's the history of Posole? And it's like Pozole. I was like, great. That just goes to show you, I always heard Spanish and I never read Spanish. So like,
Fideos?
Fideos, Fideos.
It's sort of a Latin noodle dish. I'm going to shout out to Diana Barrero, who for one of our early asylum team meetings made the best fideos I've ever had. Sorry. And and brought them over to our house, and they were so good. So if you wanted, Diana has a good recipe.
Right, that sounds. Hey, so did we use 2 quarts of broth? Does it really need that much?
2 quarts. If you're, this is like, for me, this will be like 6 to 8 servings. If you want it less brothy, you could use less. But
your hominy is going to soak up a lot of that broth.
The broth is really kind of the vehicle for all of the other vegetables. So I do like it. I do like it kind of broth heavy. Also, in my family, so we'd always have a pot of menudo on the stove, and like the kids didn't like the meat that was in there, so they would always go through and just have the hominy and the broth. And then like all that's left for the adults is like just like the tripe and like sometimes the hominy. So we always had extra broth growing up so that you could have just the broth if you wanted to, or just the broth and the hominy you could pick out, like the oxtail or the meat.
Well, and for leftovers, right? Isn't it always the case you put your great soup in the fridge and it soaks up all that broth, and then you'd go to have your leftovers and there's never enough broth to last you to the end. So you can do more now if you're really looking forward to those leftovers, or of course you can just bust open and add more broth when you're scooping out your leftovers.
We have a question. Have we added the canned green chili yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. We will with the rest of the vegetables. Go through and kind of take, where's the salt? Take a taste of the broth right now. Mine definitely needs about a teaspoon of salt.
Michael, excuse me. I think early on we had a question about someone who wasn't able to buy the hominy and wondered if corn would work, canned corn. What do you think about that?
Canned corn will totally work. You definitely don't want the agave in there then at that point, because the canned corn is going to have a more sweet flavor to it. But it's a great addition. And kind of what I was saying in the beginning is that really, what do you have in your garden? What do you have that you kind of want to add into it? I think those are some of the, I don't know, like just the better dishes where it's kind of the moment you have this, there's an inspiration. You're like, oh, let's roast the eggplant with this. And that eggplant just gives it this nuttiness that you have.
You could put in a can of black beans.
You could put in a can of black beans. There are some pozoles a little bit more towards central Mexico where they will go through and blend the frijoles in like the chile water as a thickener. So it's more stew-like. It's kind of like this richer, it's like this richer, thicker stew. But in Sonora, where I'm from, it's really kind of this like this broth because it's 120 out. Like no one wants like this thick soup. They just want something that, you know, is easy and they can sweat out. Nothing that's going to sit really in their stomach. But yeah, you can add whatever you'd like to this, and I really hope that this is just one of those recipes that you can play with. You could add in grits and kind of turn this into a chile and, you know, kind of go crazy, and then you have like this, you know, like this vegan chili that you can take to potlucks and serve over baked potatoes with cheese instead of, you know, using the broth. You go through and just have a little bit so that you get that consistency of chili. But I think the fun part is exploring with the dried chilies, what they taste like, what do different ones kind of go through and do. One of the romesco sauces that we made, it was kind of a canned one. We used the guajillo peppers instead of roasted bell peppers, and it was great. Like, it was just fantastic. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've adjusted the salt. We're gonna go through and try it again.
Any lemon juice in yet? Can I try it?
That's all thing. Sarah's gonna say it needs more salt.
Needs more salt.
See? Nope. So this is like the big push and pull in our family. So I say it's like spot on, because if you want it saltier, guess what? You can put salt on your bowl. And then also, if you're using the menudo seasoning, this also has a ton of sodium. So you could go through and do that. I'm gonna go through and add half of the chile on top right now. Ah, where's my Wookiee? Okay. Panicked. For those of you who joined late, always have a Star Wars spatula, because then you can do Wookiee impressions for the kids, and it makes cooking that much more fun. So here's the chile.
It's a pretty color.
Taste this blended stuff in the blend, and I thought it was super hot.
You
It's
found
not
it.
that hot. It's warm. You can tell it's a chili pepper, but it's really quite medium to mild. Is that fair to say?
The guajillo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you bought the puyas, if you couldn't find the guajillo, those are spicier. And then like the New Mexico ones are even spicier, but the guajillos are really kind of nice and mild. They're vibrant in color, which is great. So like, again, if you have some of this chile left over, you could blend it with like the navy beans or the larger kind of like the Roman, like the big Roman white beans. You could just kind of make some type of dressing with this on that. It'd be delicious as kind of like a cold entree. And then also romesco, this with some bread and some almonds blended up together. It's fantastic. Maybe add some roasted garlic to that. It'd be a great tip for the romesco.
Yeah, I was way more scared of dried pepper, and I guess I need to be.
Yeah, well, the chili, they are balls that are going to be spicy. But here, finally, I wonder if we have a white spoon.
Could
I think
you?
I have like a tasting spoon. Hold on one second.
Yeah, we can. You take your chili paste and make enchilada sauce out of that?
It's more like a mole pepper, though.
So you could make mole out of that?
I don't know. I mean, you could totally do it. Here I am saying experiment, and then I'm not going to say no. Yeah, you could totally go through.
I mean,
and
it
do an
says to have
enchilada
a whole
sauce.
bag of chilies, so you could do this chili process again
Mhm.
and blend it up, and you could experiment in making mole, you could experiment in making enchilada sauce or some version of red sauce that goes with a lot of different Mexican dishes.
You could start with the roux, and then add in that chili puree, and then hydrate it with the vegetable broth.
Gorgeous.
It'd be really
Enchilada
good.
sauce.
It would be really good. I think it would need the roux for the body.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to. It's going to be more like a canned chili, like an enchilada sauce. So here is.
So do we need reserve of that blender dried chili for something else, or if I want to add more,
You
do
can
so?
add, if you want it, you can go through and add more. I added half, and Sarah was happy with the spice level. So I'm just gonna kind of keep this on the side, and I can spoon it in for me. But here's the nice red chili color, so you can kind of see like it's no longer the sad the sad color that it was. And it smells great. You can smell the oregano. You can kind of smell the raisininess of the mulatto peppers. And what's interesting is like when you pull them out, I don't know if you noticed, they're actually green. Like when they come out of being hydrated, they're actually green. Don't tell Sarah that I'm adding in a little more. Chili.
I'd like to eat the soup.
Excuse me, Michael. I have a question from one of the folks who joined us at 7. A quick question about the chili paste. The question is, are we using a colander for the chili paste to puree? Could you just walk us through the way you ended up with the chili paste that you're adding right now?
We hydrated the dried chilies in hot water, about 2 cups of hot water. Soaked them. They were soaking for probably about a half hour. They'll be ready in about a half hour. I used our magic bullet blender, our smoothie blender. So the kids' berry smoothies tomorrow will taste awesome. They're gonna be so good at math tomorrow morning. You could go through and put them in a mortar and pestle and grind them that way. You could put them in a Cuisinart. You could also, I mean, if you wanted to, I guess the question is like, you could put them through a chinois or a double strainer.
Can you talk about how you know, after you soak them?
Oh, putting some of the reserve water in the blender in the bottom, and then putting the chili peppers in, pulling the stems off and the seeds.
Great, thanks for that recap. That's great.
Does that answer the question? Maybe more in depth than needed. So we've got our soup at a rolling boil here, and now we're just gonna go through. I'm probably gonna maybe add in half of those.
Now that's a large can of chilies, right? That's a 7.5 ounce.
7-ounce can of diced chili. I like the flavor of this. It kind of reminds me of home. We always had Ortega chilies. So the kind of joke was, you know, if my grandmother was mad at my grandfather because she used canned chilies for the salsa instead of making it fresh. So like, there's just something really, you know, I think there's something that gets lost in translation, where I just grew up with this love of cooking from my grandmother, who had 9 children and probably hated cooking. It's probably like the least favorite thing that she ever did. But I just was so endeared by it and loved it. And always, you know, walking into their house, there was always frijoles on the stove. It was always making you a bean burrito like right when you came in. So there's just something that really calls to me about the green chile. It kind of doesn't really even belong in here, but I love it. So you can add it, you could not add it. It could be the way that you tell your partner if you're upset with them or not. They'll know because there's canned chili in the soup. So we're at a rolling boil. I'm gonna go ahead and kill it because we're gonna eat some. So it's not so spicy. We've got our roasted vegetables. We'll go through and add those in. And again, you could use less stock, and I kind of just like using a whole zucchini or a whole squash instead of having it kind of half left over. So if you do just want to have a smaller portion, everything in half would probably get you 4 decent servings out of this. And there we are, not in danger of spilling over onto the stove. Success. If you lined your sheet pan, that's one less dish you have to do. Look, it's already cooked. Don't look at that part. All right, look, already clean, ready to go back. Now, if you do like the thicker, if you do like a thicker stock to this, if you wanted to have something a little bit more hearty, you could absolutely go through and add some of the maseca or toast a corn tortilla to tear it up and let that hydrate. Let that hydrate the broth. Like we talked about before, we did have family members that would go through and blend like pinto beans up to kind of go through like it would be like a Tuscan soup, like a cannellini bean soup. So it kind of gives it that texture, that mouthfeel, so that it's more like a stew. We have our brilliant minister. I'm gonna go through and
Thank you.
go through. One of the things that you have to do to pass the MFC, the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, is make sure that you can prep
Garnish, properly
toppings.
garnish.
Yeah, properly garnished. Yes. So we have some sliced radishes. We have some avocado. We have some cilantro.
Do you want onion?
Yeah, I love the cebollitas. So I'll
You
go
want
through
big
and
onion?
I'll go through and cut these up. You could also, if you wanted it kind of thicker, you could totally take some corn tortilla chips and smash them up in your bowl, and then pour this soup on top of it. It kind of be corn heavy because you have the hominy in there, and then you also have, if you have the canned corn, that might be overkill, but it would be kind of akin to tortilla soup. So you'd have kind of that mix in there. It'd be delicious.
So I noticed you turned it off.
Yep.
Yours is done.
It's done. We'll go through, and if it's a little bit bitter, that's when we would go through and add in a little bit of the agave to balance it. But again, for ours, I'm not sure why the vegetable stock is just a little bit sweet for me. So I ended up having about maybe a quarter cup of the puree left. So we can go through and put that in a small bowl and add that to kind of whoever would like it. If you find that it's missing something, like you're going through and you're tasting and you're like, oh, it's almost there. The trick that I do to go through and balance that out is a very, very Mexican ingredient. Very Mexican ingredient. I don't know if you see this. Soy sauce. Yeah, I put a tiny bit when I'm making usually vegan food. If you were here for the last one when we did the mushrooms and the soy sauce, it's kind of like my trick to get that bottom note, because everything in here might be really bright and there's all this flavor kind of coming up on the palate, but the soy sauce will kind of ground it a little bit. There's also, if you don't mind MSG, there's also jugo, which is like, Eileen, do you know, it's like the brown sauce, like that you would find in like Korean
Yeah.
or do you know what I'm talking about? It's like
Yeah.
the brown liquid. It's not like liquid smoke, but it's
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
But
it's-
not that. Not Worcestershire. No.
yeah, not Worcestershire. It's flour, MSG.
How about just straight accent?
Yeah, but it's really good. It's also really good in like in Thai fried rice. Like it's like that deeper soy sauce flavor. So you could use jugo if you're not allergic to wheat. I'm allergic to flour, so we use the tamari. And that kind of, you might want to put that out for your guests if you're having a dinner party. It's one of the things that they can go through and top with. There's also an assortment of hot sauces that you could do as well. I prefer lime as my acidity, but you could totally go through and use hot sauces which have the vinegar and the extra chile.
So, Michael, we anticipated some of the things, not always correctly. We definitely sauteed all of our vegetables instead of roasting it because we
That's
were
fine.
hungry. But we are eating this soup and it is delicious.
Awesome. There's no wrong way to do it.
And
Right.
we want to thank you because all of us have looked at those dried chilies before and been like, we know that you can use this to make tasty things, but we don't know how.
That's right.
And we literally use
All of it.
all of it in the soup that we made. It's this
Oh,
beautiful,
that's great. I love it. I love these.
rich color. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty.
So this is also kind of a traditional Christmas dish as well, as you can imagine. So it has all of the colors, and it would also be kind of a family argument as to who would make the pozole and who would bring the toppings. So, and my mom, is my mom on? I don't think she is. I'm gonna tell my mom. They left my mom, who's white, the job of, like, when they were making tamales and having pozole, they gave her the job of bringing green olives. like they were like, look, we don't trust you, so bring the green olives. And so my mom did. She brought this like huge jar of green olives. And again, this is something that gets lost in translation when we're talking about getting lost in translation. So we're making Christmas tamales, which are the red chile. They use a lot of these dried chile. And then you put 1 or 2 olives in the middle and then wrap it up, right? It's kind of like a king cake, like you would find in New Orleans. So you've got like the little baby olives. But here's where like ingredients need to be as specific as possible. Something gets lost on me sometimes because she bought olives with pits. So every single holiday from the first batch. I mean, and we're talking like, I mean, you can imagine like 10 families sitting around this table going through and knocking out tamale after tamale after tamale, putting in the olives. And they have this big one, this like huge, like, what are they, like the speckled iron pot. They're steaming them, and like that first batch comes out, they already have the next batch going in, and there's just like a tiny bit left to make. Most of them have the pit, like the olives with the pits in them.
I also would like to make a pitch for your toppings. If you have vegan cheese and you want to shred cheese over the top of it, or whatever version of sour cream or plain yogurt, things like that, that also tastes really good as a topping.
The cultured cashew yogurt tastes amazing on top of this. I mean, not the vanilla, but like just the plain tastes amazing on top of it. It does give it some of the richness. And again, I think that you have to have radishes, but I'm just biased. I think it just adds that necessary crunch that you'll get. And if you sauteed the vegetables, really the only reason why we roasted them was so that we got kind of a little bit of different texture in there. So you're not really missing out on anything if you went through and approached it differently. And also, if it went totally wrong, you can always DoorDash, right? Like, who doesn't love takeout? So I think it's really good to kind of go through an experiment, and you'll only learn by making mistakes. And yeah, that's it. Do you have?
No, I'm eating. I'm ready to eat.
That's, yeah. Are there any questions or?
Mine is delicious, absolutely delicious.
How much salt did you end up adding? Was that Patty?
Yeah, I actually used the Better Than Bouillon mushroom stuff, and it needed a little more salt, so I actually did a little bit of soy sauce.
And see, like that soy sauce kind of brings it.
Soy sauce in?
No, because I let you add it to your Jonas. That's why. So when I said it's like the salt's good on it, and Sarah said it needed a little bit more salt. So you've got a lot of sodium in your hot sauce. You've got sodium in your soy sauce. Can you tell my white grandfather had heart disease? So like you can always go through and add in the salt a little bit later, and kind of adjust as necessary. Patty, one of the things, I was talking with a friend of mine who was asking what type of mushrooms, like dried mushrooms, I used for the vegan pozole, because he has a recipe and it sounds fantastic just going through and listening to it. It sounds like it really does taste like kind of a beef or an oxtail pozole. And we were talking about it, and we were trying to discuss the difference between traditional and authentic, right? Like, how do you go through and have something be traditional or authentic? And so, everything here, definitely not traditional, right? Lots of kind of stuff coming in from different influences, but it's certainly authentic. And so I just like that that was really cool because I saw the mushroom stock at the grocery store, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I like had already sent out the ingredient list, and I was like, oh, that'd be so bad. So bad. You want to add more chili
I
paste?
think it
Ooh.
tastes not as rich as.
So here's what's great is like the dried chilies obviously are all different sizes, and I think you really could go through and get a little bit crazy and mix up some different ones, especially with the pasilla. But like Sarah just said, it wasn't as spicy as it was last time. So even though we used the exact same amount of chili peppers,
I don't know, it's deeply flavored as last time.
Well, I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who are enjoying their dinner. It got very quiet in the chat, and and Sarah's enjoying it. I hope. Are you?
Fast order right now.
All right. Well, if you have any questions, unmute yourself and wave or something, and we'll try to call on you. And if not, then we can just say thank you to our presenters. So anybody have questions? Comments?
It is delicious. Thank you.
Happy people eating?
Right. Thank you so much.
Reverend Sarah and Michael, thank you so much for your time tonight and your skills. It was wonderful. I'd just like to remind everybody that Meatless Monday is part of the Earth Month 2021 this year, and we do have other activities and presentations coming up. And there's the calendar. If you follow the link I put into chat, you'll find that interactive calendar with lots of activities, presentations, speakers, that kind of thing. So our next virtual session is going to be on May the 2nd, that's Sunday, and it's going to be Ty Benoit speaking about, excuse me, I'm going to get to the title of it, Equitable Climate Solutions. And that's at 7 o'clock. And following that, John and Paula Warren are going to be presenting on the 4th of May. Their part 2 of Where's the Beef? So they have lots of tips and tricks on how to move to a more plant-based diet. And then on May the 6th, which is Thursday, the Citizens Climate Lobby here in Boise is going to be presenting information about the carbon pricing solution to carbon emissions. And you're interested in that, they'd be delighted to explain. Follow the link in the chat, and then you'll see the various other activities that are going to be coming up. So let's see, there's something I needed to mention, that there is a recipe, and it is a PDF that I can't post into the chat right now. And we'll ask somebody to post that onto the Meatless Monday webpage, which is on the booth website. So that should probably be in the next couple of days. And if you had any lingering questions or want to repeat this, then you'll have access to the recipe. That looks like a pretty good topping selection, Michael.
Right. And then of course, extra radishes.
Oh, they're the radishes. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, empty bowl. How about that? All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care. Bye.
I gotta plug in for a second.
Hi. You're still being recorded. I think I'll stop the recording.
I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. My husband and I have been vegan for a little over a year, and I'm Mexican, and it's really hard to find good Mexican food. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's really, really good. And the ceviche is bomb. It's really good. It's my new favorite. Thank you.
And you're Dana, your name's Dana, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah,
or something.
if you go through and even add in like the zest, going through and adding in like the orange, you could also go through and add in the supremes of like a blood orange and that kind of stuff. So you get all of this beautiful color in there, or like the ají amarillo, like going through and getting that kind of sour orange flavor to it too. You can just kind of go all over the place with the ceviche from like.
Even my dog likes the food.
All the way up, like it can get crazy. So.
Yes, thank you.
That
Thank
sounds
you.
good.
Sounds
Thanks for
good.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. See you again next time.
Yes, of course. Bye.
All right.
I almost cried.
Wow, that's a compliment.
I didn't cry. I almost cried.
That is great. All right. You may
That's
have to do
great.
this again soon.
I'll stop recording now.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Craig. Excellent.
Thanks, guys.